Once again, weapons made in the USA, paid for by the USA, are raining down from US-made planes and ships and helicopters flown by US-paid Israeli pilots on the overcrowded cities and refugee camps of Gaza, killing, in the approving words of the New York Times, mostly militants and some children. Children like 10-month-old Hanan Tanesh, who was buried yesterday. Last night, 3 more children died as missiles fell on Jabalia refugee camp, the most densely populated place on earth. As of last report, 48 have died in this latest round of bombing. 451 are injured, losing arms or legs or eyes. So many more without power or water. Homes destroyed, with the full support of the U.S. government, which maintains the flow of arms to the Zionist Reich in Palestine while ignoring the victims of Hurricane Sandy. What is Gaza? It is a giant concentration camp, the world's largest prison. 1.8 million people living behind iron walls. The young are in prison, the children are in prison, the elderly are in prison. And they have been imprisoned in one form or another for 64 years. They are imprisoned for the crime of being born in the land of Palestine, for being native to that land, for being that they or their parents or grandparents are born where now stand the cities of Tel Aviv and Rishon LeZion and Herzliya, where the beaches are now lined with luxury hotels owned by Hilton and Sheraton and condominiums that are second homes for settlers from the United States. The workers of Gaza, the dispossessed from camps like Jabalia, were forced to build those hotels and condos under 4 decades of direct Israeli occupation, when they were allowed to return to the land of their birth only as day laborers who could be imprisoned if they were found there after sundown. And today, 5 years ago, they elected a government, a party, Hamas, which refuses to relinquish the right of return. They elected it democratically, and now they cannot leave Gaza. And they are living there subject to restricted food, restricted water, and summary execution. As the United States, as Israel targets their elected leaders for assassination and terrorizes the population. That is their crime in the eyes of the Zionist leaders who are so linked to Wall Street. There are more Israeli companies traded on the New York Stock Exchange than any other country outside of North America. In the eyes of Wall Street bankers and the Pentagon generals and Beltway politicians, they are also criminals. Because the Palestinian people have committed the crime of being born in a strategic land at the crossroads of Asia and Africa, in a part of the world that holds 52% of the world's oil and 42% of its natural gas. Resources that have not only yielded incredible super profits to U.S. oil monopolies and banks and war contractors, but an area of the world they must keep weak and divided and torn apart, lest those resources be used to develop the region, to develop Africa and Asia independently of Wall Street, lest Arabian petrodollars cease to fill the vaults of Chase Manhattan and Citibank. The heroic uprisings last year in Egypt and Tunisia and Bahrain and now in Jordan, like the Iranian Revolution 30 years ago, have showed the U.S. ruling class there is no regime in the region they can rely upon without the loaded gun of the Israeli settler state, without the loaded gun of the Israeli settler state aimed at its head. That is also the crime of the people of Syria, whose government is not revolutionary or socialist, but merely sought to develop independently in cooperation with its neighbors economically. So now it is the target of a sectarian war being organized by the United States and France and Saudi Arabia and Qatar, a war they aim to spread across the entire region. That was the crime of Iraq and Libya and the Islamic Republic of Iran. And these wars are a stepping stone to a world war against Russia and China because the world capitalist market has no room for them. That is the reality of imperialism, of monopoly capitalism in its highest stage of decay. Palestine, the fight to free Palestine, is the very heart of the global class war between the 1%, between imperialist monopoly capital and the oppressed masses of humanity. Thus our party has always stood by Palestine from the days of the '67 war, when our youth held the first multinational demonstrations in this country. When there were very few Palestinians here, very few Palestinian organizations, and almost every activity for Palestine was subject to armed attack. And it was thus when we covered the streets of New York and other cities with flyers after the Munich Olympics, bringing hundreds of thousands a message they had never heard before in the media. Today we will be repeating that tradition in Times Square at 2:30, where we will stand for Gaza, as we've done earlier this week, Thursday and Friday, and tomorrow and Tuesday outside the Israeli mission on 42nd Street and 2nd Avenue. In the words of Comrade George Habash, the founder of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the oppressed and starving will be victorious. Long live Palestine! From the river to the sea, Palestine!